Welcome to Central News, I'm Hilary Entwistle. In today's news, Tauranga will be hosting many dawn services on Anzac Day, and there has been an increase in the number of those attending in the past couple of years. General Manager of Tauranga RSA, Graham Howard, says that it's important to remember those who paid with their lives for our freedom. He says the dawn services are not just about those in the world wars, but those who fought in other wars such as the Vietnam and United Nations deployments.
Okay, there are a lot of services in Tauranga on Anzac Day, starting of the dawn services here in Tauranga and in Mount Maunganui. And I believe that, we should attend them to remember the people who have sacrificed, given the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms today.
The Tauranga District Health Board is holding a campaign aimed at reducing the number of severe falls in patients around hospitals in New Zealand. April Fools is a nationwide campaign that encourages 4 steps to reduce falls. Have your vision checked, begin a regular exercise program, make your home safer and have your GP review your medications. Tauranga Hospital's Director of Nursing, Julie Robinson, says the staff have been getting on board with the campaign.
It's part of a national initiative under the Health Quality and Safety Commission, who are encouraging all DHBs to raise awareness about falls, and it's a play on April Fool's Day. So it coincides with the beginning, with April the 1st, and it's just a pun really to make it stick in people's minds. And so there's a lot of promotion on for the whole of April.
As the number of children attending preschool continues to rise, statistics show Tauranga has already met the government's future early childhood education goal. Data from 2012 shows 98.1% of Tauranga children who started school during 2012 had participated in early childhood education, just more than the government's national target for 2016 of 98%. Tauranga MP Simon Bridges says this week praised the news Tauranga is fully involved in the preschool scene, saying he hopes the rest of the nation will follow suit. In perfect surf at Manu Bay in Raglan, young Mount Maunganui surfer Mackenzie Christie surfed to his first ever victory at the national level, winning the Premier Under-18 Boys Division of the Backdoor Grom Bash. With surf sitting around the 1.5 metre to 2 metre mark all day with next to no wind, the scene was set for an amazing day of surfing that included firsts, double titles and a whole lot of fun for the country's best young surfers on Sunday. Christie claimed his victory late in the day, surfing to a 14-point total. Christie was the only goofy footer in the final, which gave him point of difference as he completed his big tight hooks in the pocket. The result will give him a confidence boost as he continues his build up to the World Junior Championships in June. Now for our region's weather, Hamilton, rain turning into showers with a southwest change. Your expected high is 22 and an overnight low of 15. Tauranga, your Wednesday will be raining, turning into showers that may clear later. Your expected high is 23 and an overnight low of 17. Just ahead, Tauranga City Council's annual plan. Welcome to Central News on TV Central. Last week we showed you part 1 of our interviews with Tauranga City Council's Mayor Stuart Crosby regarding the draft annual plan. Here is part 2. How is the Tauranga City Council helping with plans for the city tertiary campus?
That's a tertiary partnership which involves Wainanga from Whakatane, the Bay of Plenty Polytech and the University of Waikato. And so we desperately need a proper campus here in our CBD. So our council has put up a piece of land which is a car park, a designated site, and that's hopefully kick-started the whole project. So they're now trying to find $30 million for the physical build, and that's starting to look quite good. So hopefully within about 2 years we'll have stage 1 of a proper campus here. The University of Waikato have actually been here 15 years but in rented accommodation, and it's not a true university campus, so everybody's working really hard to get a proper campus here in our CBD.
And what benefits do you think that will bring?
It'll bring many benefits. One, it'll help populate our central business district, and all central business districts are struggling at the moment for a whole host of reasons, so that'll bring anything up to 5,000 students into the CBD. But more importantly, it'll create an educational opportunity here that's not here at the moment. And the second element that we're looking to do is to make sure that the pathways that are taught at the campus relate to our economy, not somebody else's. So, for example, marine sciences, which is actually here already, logistics through the Port of Tauranga, and of course business and commerce, and University of Waikato are very strong in that area.
There will be no new libraries built. Why is that?
No, but we are planning to extend the Greaton Library. So we've built a new library at Papamoa Beach. We are extending the Greaton one. And a lot of that's around our concern around e-books and technology. And so we're just not quite sure whether we spend another $10 million plus on a library, let's say at Bethlehem, when e-books are starting to come into vogue. So we're watching that very carefully, and our strategy is to maximise our existing libraries before we go and build a new one.
Now, one thing that will interest all people from Tauranga about the annual plan is what the council's plans on improving the traffic flow on Cameron Road.
Yes, there's a pinch point around the hospital. So there's a lot of activity around the hospital, and on the opposite side of the hospital in Cameron Road, a developer has come up with a proposal. So we're going to make a contribution to the upgrade of that, which means traffic lights. So it's a three-way venture between the council, the hospital and the development community to fund improvements along Cameron Road, and they'll be starting fairly soon.
So there potentially could be a cross intersection with traffic lights there?
The design hasn't been complete yet, but definitely there'll be traffic lights in and around the entrance to the hospital.
City centre parking has been a bit of a topical issue of late. What changes have the council made there?
It's been a topical issue for many years, and it always will be, I think. Yes, we've made some significant changes. We're looking to have all-day parking available in the wider part of the CBD, except for Devonport Road and Grey Street. And so one of the complaints has been the limits have been too short, so that's deterred people coming in. A 2-hour maximum is just simply not enough, apparently, for people to go shopping. I can do all my shopping in 2 hours, but it's not enough. So outside of particularly Devonport Road and Grey Street, we'll have all-day parking available. You'll be paying for it, but it'll be quite a low rate.
Tauranga City Council is in debt. What will be done in the next year to reduce that debt?
We've always had a debt cap, and that's a ratio to our income of 250%. So in our 10-year plan, we're planning to bring that ratio back. In dollar terms, it won't actually be coming back, because as our revenue grows, then our debt may grow a little bit as well. But we've got a number of initiatives to reduce our debt. As I say, debt is not a crime in a rapidly growing city. It's just a financial instrument. What you need to do is make sure that it's under control. The risk with debt is rapidly increasing interest rates. So yes, we have a number of strategies to reduce our debt by a ratio. One of them is to try and pay off Route K, which is $70 million by way of example. Half of our debt is not funded through property taxes, so we need to make that quite clear. It's user pays debt, and half is paid through rates. Now,
recently you saw the departure of Lee Orton, and you'll be bringing in Gary Paul. What is some of the experience that he will bring?
Well, that was triggered, of course, by the tragic death of our former CEO, Ken Patterson. He had only been on the job 9 months and passed away. So we brought Lee in for a short period of time to keep the place stable and carry on the reforms, which are very important. But we have just engaged Gary Paul. Now, Gary was the former CEO of Wellington City Council for 15 years, highly experienced, and I describe him as a good, safe set of hands, and he's really motivated to come here. So he's gone through all the reforms of Wellington, which was quite a grey city for a while, to now a very dynamic city in my view. I love Wellington, and Gary's managed all that in his tenure there. So I think we're very fortunate to get him, and we're quite excited to have Gary up here in Tauranga.
And is he looking forward to moving to Tauranga?
Yes, he is. He says it's quite a challenge. Obviously, it's a different place to Wellington. I describe Tauranga as the naughty teenager of cities in New Zealand. We're still growing, quite immature in many respects, and Gary will bring a lot of knowledge on how to grow our city into a real city. We are the 5th largest city in New Zealand, but still very young and still gangly, I'd probably describe it. And so we're very much looking forward to his experience and how to maximise our opportunities.
Submissions to the draft annual plan can be made on tauranga.gov.nz. Just ahead, the Green Party on fracking. Welcome back. Electricity prices and shares for Mighty River Power are hot topics at the moment. So Amy caught up with the Green Party's energy spokesperson, Gareth Hughes, to find out their stance on fracking.
Hi Gareth, welcome back. Now can you tell me how much water is used in the fracking process?
Well, there is a huge amount of water that's used to pump all those sand and chemicals down the wells. Most New Zealand wells use around 350 cubic metres of water per frack job, but we have used up to 2,000 cubic metres, which is the equivalent of 70 water tankers, so a huge amount of water. It's a big question, particularly on the east coast of the country, where fracking is likely to expand, where there is real water constraints and competition at the moment, so it's a big issue.
So what are the chemicals used, and are they considered dangerous?
Well, there's a huge range of chemicals that have been and can be involved in fracking. Many of them are harmful to the environment and to people. Now, the chemical concentration is only around 2% of the fluid pumped underwater, but once that fluid comes out, it's often soaked with the hydrocarbons they're off to try and find. So water disposal, the fluid disposal, is a real problem, and we haven't dealt with it very well in New Zealand's history. There's a great deal of uncertainty around the chemicals, given it wasn't consented for 2 decades, how accurate the chemical list historically is. This is one of the interesting questions that we all hope to see some guidance from the Parliamentary Commissioner for.
So how are companies proposing that they will safely dispose of these chemicals?
Well, we're slowly changing the rules, but it's been an outrage what we've seen in Taranaki, where under the Kapuni wells, instead of lining a pit or having safe metal drum storage, literally the fracking produced water, the fluid which has come out of the well, has been dumped in holes in the ground. Unsurprisingly, it has leached into the soil and the groundwater below. Currently, hundreds of cubic metres of soil is being trucked to Wellington to be remediated. There's 5 underground groundwater areas which are contaminated with the hydrocarbons, which the council, Taranaki Regional Council, says can't be cleaned up. So we have seen this case of water contamination in New Zealand, basically because we've just stored this toxic water in holes in the ground, not even lined. So while this practice shouldn't occur in the future, I think it's a good example of how leaving it up to the industry to regulate themselves has led to bad consequences.
So as you mentioned, there is a concern that fracking could contaminate groundwater. So is there also a concern that it could perhaps contaminate our water supply as well? Yeah,
along with climate change, the water contamination issue is a huge question. We have seen very serious allegations and probable evidence of this in America, where they've had a huge amount of frack jobs across various states there. There are numerous ways the chemicals or the hydrocarbons can escape into the water, from poor well casing through to poor water disposal mechanism. There's a number of ways that water can migrate into it. This is a huge question for New Zealand because we depend on our water for our agriculture, for our horticulture, to be able to swim in a river. So the Parliamentary Commission has pointed out it's a real concern. There's a number of ways it can occur, and she's likely to come up with a number of recommendations how we can avoid it. I guess the point that the Green Party would like to make is that there are no water contamination concerns with solar power or wind power. There are a lot cleaner ways we can get our energy without risking our environment.
Now, is there any evidence that fracking can create seismic activity as well?
Absolutely. The link between human-induced seismicity or earthquakes and fracking has been well established both in New Zealand and around the world. Obviously it's not just fracking which can cause earthquakes. In New Zealand, when we dug a hydro lake, there were small earthquakes. You can see it in geothermal. But it is a worry for New Zealand because we're a naturally seismic country, and still there isn't a great deal of scientific study into what the impact of human-induced or fracking-caused earthquakes would be on natural earthquakes. Now, the Parliamentary Commission has pointed this fact out in her report. She thinks there may be steps you could take to try and minimise it. But the problem is, at the moment, there is no guidelines, there are no steps, there's no rules for the companies to apply if you're possibly going to cause an earthquake. So again, this is another area which is a great concern to Kiwis, which needs to be addressed. We should get this issue sorted before we allow it to proceed.
So you think that we should be concerned about this with New Zealand's abundance of fault lines?
Absolutely. This is something that's crucially important. We've seen earthquakes larger than 3 on the Richter scale overseas. There was earthquakes caused by fracking both in Switzerland and the UK, which saw moratoriums and governmental inquiries there. It's a real risk. It sounds like something out of a science fiction novel, but it's true. And in New Zealand, where we have natural earthquakes, and as a natural threat, is something we should be concerned about and take seriously.
Do you think that fracking could ever be carried out in New Zealand in a safe way?
It may very well be able to be. You may be able to mitigate all the risks. I, however, don't have confidence that under the current legislative and regulatory regime we will see that. I have no confidence we've seen that in the past. In fact, we've seen extraordinary shoddy practices, and as the Commissioner herself notes, we've seen light-handed, fragmented self-regulation of the industry, not up to scratch. Now, of course, you're always going to see a risk. You're always gambling. I guess for me, the priority is taking those bullets out of the chamber. We have a wealth of clean energy options, and I'd rather be progressing and seeing that government support and attention on the clean energy options, which is the future of the economy, not gambling at all on fracking.
So is there a way that our viewers could perhaps do a bit more research on the topic?
There's a huge amount of information online. The Green Party website's got a number of web pages and information from the facts that we've found using the Official Information Act over the last couple of years. The Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment's report is a wealth of information. Overseas, we've seen the UK Royal Society, various environmental groups have undertaken it. But I guess the interesting thing is that fracking is a term which has only entered the public discourse in probably the last 2 years, mostly because of American film Gaslands. And what we've seen in New Zealand is citizen researchers finding out the historical shoddy practices we've seen in the country. This isn't the way it shouldn't be. We shouldn't be leaving it up to our citizens to research and find the faults to try and fix them. This is a key responsibility of the government, and I wish they'd take their responsibility seriously, not just act as cheerleader-in-chief for this controversial industry.
Just ahead, the Aotearoa Business Games. If you have just joined us, welcome to Central News. If you have always wanted to participate in a sport for the fun of it and not for the competition side of it, the Aotearoa Biz Games might be for you. What are the Aotearoa Biz Games?
Well, the Aotearoa Biz Games is a multi-sport event, and the idea is best compared to like a mini Commonwealth Games, except people are representing their company, not their country. So anyone can take part, friends, family and colleagues, and you're wearing the company logo and the banners, and it's about fun and team building.
Why was this started?
Well, it's never, more essential than now to reward and build team spirit within a workplace. Reassurance that the employee is the most valued and valuable member and is very vital to the confidence and success of a business. So the Aotearoa Biz Games were set up so that, a company can once a year get their employees involved and really reward their input and what they, what they bring to the organisation.
Now, there are 11 sports to participate in. So what are some of these, and when will these be taking place?
Well, 11 sports is a lot to go through, so I'll mention some of them. Most of them are in Tauranga and one is in Hamilton. We have karting at Daytona Raceway, which is over in Hamilton. The rest are in Tauranga, so we have golf at Omanu Golf Club here. There's the 10K run or walk, which will be held at the Techt All-Terrain Park. And then also, obviously, there are the team sports such as volleyball, which is going to be held here at our fantastic ASB Bay Park Stadium. So that's exciting. So yes, there are lots of opportunities and lots of events for people to take part in.
What level of skill is needed for these?
Look, anyone can really take part. I mean, if you want an easy time, then you can do the 10K walk, or if you want a bit of a thrill, you could do the karting. If you want more of a challenge, then I say do the 10K run, or possibly some of the team sports. So really it's open to all ages and all abilities.
What do players get out of the experience?
Well, for a participant who might be a CEO or a manager or an owner of a small business, it's about brand awareness, and it's about networking, possibly establishing new business contacts. And then for the employees, possibly the clients, it's about team building and having a great fun weekend. And in some cases, if it's on the annual calendar, you're working towards it. So it's a great health initiative.
Are there any rules and regulations?
As long as you're not representing a sports club, you can take part. And we do say if you're under 18, then we require parental consent. And we do love having families involved. So that's an aspect of the games that we welcome.
What does the winning team get?
Well, of course, we have medals for first, second and third place, as well as lots of corporate awards for the most number of entrants, winning the most number of medals. We have spot prizes, as well as a great opportunity to go down to Tauranga Strand and De Beer House over the weekend and enjoy some of their specials and drink specials.
We were lucky enough to catch up with some of the participants of the Aotearoa Biz Games. Why is your workplace competing in the Aotearoa Biz Games?
We've been doing social volleyball for a few weeks now, for the last past few months, and I've received an email giving me the information about getting small businesses together and networking, and I thought it was a perfect opportunity to bring our small business along and get our brand out there.
And what sports are you participating in?
We're just going to be participating in the volleyball. The reason being is my daughter has just been offered a 4-year scholarship to Texas, and it'll be my last chance to get to play on court with her. So.
Do you think you'll have a good chance of winning or getting a medal?
We've got some people coming along that are up there, so it could be quite interesting, yeah. Other than myself, obviously, who's going to let the team down, but that's all right, you've got to have a neutral in there somewhere.
Well, thank you very much and all the best with that volleyball game. Now, Bryce, what is your involvement with the Aotearoa Biz Games?
Well, through Ash, who runs a mobile tackle fishing shop off Papamoa Beach, we work together to support the charitable trust which I run called Wish for Fish. Basically, it's set up to allow people with mental and physical disabilities to enjoy saltwater activities.
And tell us a little bit about your charity.
Well, I suffered a shallow water diving accident 6.5 years ago, and I suffered a high-level spinal injury. From that, I've just used it as a vehicle to try and make other people's lives a little bit better. Hence, Wish for Fish was born, and with the support of Ash and Centurion Fishing Supplies, we're growing day by day.
Well, thank you very much, and all the best to both of you with the Aotearoa Biz Games. Registrations are still open. Visit aotearoagames.com. That is the news for today. We really want you to be involved, so like us on Facebook and let us know your views. If you have news including your own video and photos, go to our website and hit upload. Thanks for joining us. I will be back tomorrow night with more guests from in and around the regions. I'm Hilary Entwistle. Have a lovely evening.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.